they cannot be able to pay for their import. They cannot also be able to literally have fuel in the country. High cost of living affecting the Sri Lankan people. But we hope that the government that will come in after the August 9th polls will literally reduce this, simply because if we don't, then we shall be heading the direction that Sri Lanka is heading to. Then clearly states that the future isn't bright for Kenya as a country. And let me look at stories now. Made top of the page of the Standard this morning. Raila Karua, this is how we will govern. And as Azimio flag bearer and his running mate Karua open up on what makes their ticket tick on a day. His coalition wrote to IEBC on 7 issues it wants addressed ahead of today's meeting with 4 presidential candidates. Now the 2 local dailies, one talks about Raila Karua, this is how we will govern, and later they have written to IEBC, and the Star talks about controversy rocks IEBC's tech tender. Commission awards a creative satellite contract to one of the highest bidders, Ostatech Limited, with IEC Telecoms, which quoted 202 million Kenyan shillings. Acacia Satlink quoted 182 million Kenyan shillings. Now, the 7 demands that have been written to IEBC by the Azimio Fraternity Brigade is, first, the list. They want the certified copy of register of voters, including their names and ID numbers. Second, about the ballots, they want design of ballots, papers, and location of contracted printing papers. And when it comes to training, they want the curriculum of training for election officials and training dates. When it comes to transfers, names of officers involved in illegal transfer of voters and action taken. Remember when KPMG concluded the auditing, it came and said that there were some illegal transfers, and now the Azimio la Umoja wants the names of the officers involved in the transfers sent to the team. Now, management emergency phone contacts of all officials manning critical poll centers, and technology, number of KIMS kits, functionality, status and distribution plan, and centers name, physically location, and the connectivity of all polling stations. Today, the IEBC shall be having a date with all presidential hopefuls in the country. And still on IEBC, controversy rocks IEBC multi-million tech supply tender as IEBC gives the tender to the highest bidder. Now, IEBC's big tenders, supply of KIMS kit, Smartmatic International Holding BV, and printing of ballot papers, Infom-P Lakos SA, and audit of voter register was given to KPMG, satellite services, Ostatech, and KIMS network unknown, logistic and transport, Posta Kenya. Today is the day that IEBC shall be meeting presidential hopefuls.
Yeah, and you've mentioned quite a few issues that have been raised up, which are, a common factor or a common denominator in all presidential aspirants, particularly the voter register, the manual voter register, which was scrapped off, and it, the IBC says everything will be going electronic. All you have to do is walk to the polling station, sign on a gadget, or they verify your details on a laptop or an iPad or whatever they'll use, and then you can go ahead and vote. And the voter manual, which is a book, literally, and a pen, and of course trying to tick off your name, your ID number, has been scrapped off. And they have been raising concerns on just what happens if that particular gadget, fails to work on that particular day due to, one, power. Is there a backup power? Or, the 3G network or the transmission could be slow. Or if at all there's a place where, there's a fingerprint sensor, what happens if my fingerprint on that particular day refuses to just, key in and verify that it is indeed me? That is the questions that they have been raising. We've seen also civil societies come out to also query on just why they had to do away with the manual voter register, to which the IBC has been very adamant, says that, they're not working on that as of now. They will be going ahead to work on the electric voter register. The 3G network is also another very big issue. Some polling stations, about 1,100 of them, lack the 3G network. What happens in this polling station? How will they transmit results from the polling station to the main tallying center, which I believe will be the Bomas of Kenya? The servers as well, the issue of 2017, the Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya Coalition is trying to avoid the same scenario of the servers which have never been opened to date by the IBC. And so the servers is also a big question on just, you know, what is the backup plan if at all, you know, the elections head to the court or the election petitions head to the court and the court actually asks the IBC to open the servers. Well, are they able to open it, and are they able to find whatever they're looking for? The names of officials who were implicated in the illegal transfer of voters to be made public. I don't know the legality about that, you know, the safety of these commissioners about that, because if that was the intention from the start, the IBC would have made the names public from the beginning. And of course, the ballot papers. We're also looking at just the safety within the polling center. The COVID-19 pandemic is still there. Are we still required to go with masks to the polling stations and things like that? What will be the one capacity or one you know, polling station? What kind of capacity is it allowed to hold? How many agents? How many IBC officials? You know, there are just so many questions into that. And of course, these are the key issues that we're expecting IBC to be addressing them out, you know, the presidential aspirants today, and to just make this public, some of these concerns and some of the solutions that they will have come up with at the end of them, at the end of that meeting. Also to note that this is the first time that we'll be seeing Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto in the same space, you know, with the same concerns. So the body language will be taking a look at that, and then of course, just, you know, really what we're expecting from that meeting.
And it's all about the IEBC. The preparedness is IEBC ready to literally hold this year's general election. And as Cynthia said, when it comes to the elections and championing of how the elections will be held, Deputy President William Ruto will be meeting for the first time. And the last time they literally had such a meeting was back in 2013. Now, something else happened yesterday. Raila Amolo Odinga and Martha Karua did have a talk down with the members of press, and yesterday they talked about a few issues, and one of them was about the cost of living. And Raila Amolo Odinga said within 100 days in office, his government will be able to deal with the high cost of living that is literally affecting the country. The issue we've seen that the blame game that has always been there between Raila Amolo Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto, blaming each other when it comes to the cost of living in the country. Deputy President William Ruto saying that it is Raila Amolo Odinga, and Raila Amolo Odinga, on the other hand, the brigade saying it's about started at Galana Kulalu, whereby the rain started beating Kenya as a country. And yesterday, Raila Amolo Odinga cleared the air when it comes to him being involved and being close to the government. He said that he is just literally sit down with the government and have some issues, and also he advises the government, and he is not in the government. And some of the issues that were also raised yesterday was in regards to the legality of a deputy president having another docket, and it's an issue that Raila Amolo Odinga also talked about and said that it is possible for a deputy president to have another docket. Remember, during the unveiling of Martha Karua at KICC, she was added to oversee the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Ministry. It has been a question that has been raised in the country, and also the issue to do with Deputy President literally coming out and saying that the government has done this and the government has done that. Raila Amolo Odinga called on him and said, if you think the government is not doing the right thing, then resign.
Yeah, and I think for me, what stood out from that interview was the question on just why would Martha Karua be a deputy president as well as a minister for justice and constitutional affairs at the same time. And we've been looking at legal minds who have been coming out to say that, you know, as a deputy president can only hold one office at a time, and so she should just be the deputy president, you know, if they're elected into office, and not think about the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, to which she answered and says that, you know, the deputy president will be looking out to work in, you know, different sectors or different jobs as allocated by his or her senior, that will be the president. And so she says, you know, she's very passionate about, you know, justice, rights, human rights, constitutional matters. We've seen she's a senior counsel for one. We've seen her come out previously to stand firm in different cases business, be it the Building Bridges Initiative. She was part of the Linda Katiba movement. She's also a former justice minister. She's very passionate about this. And so this is just like an additional kind of work that she will be doing, and working closely with the justice system, the corridors of courts, to ensure that, you know, justice is dispensed as fast as they can in different cases that are still lacking in courts over years. And so this is also something that came out questioned, and she answered that. And, you know, this is also the first joint interview they've actually done together ever since they launched their manifestos early this month. We're expecting that the Deputy President will be launching his, that is tomorrow, June 30th, or if at all there'll be a change of plans or it will be communicated, but we're expecting it on June 30th. And perhaps, you know, we'll be looking to see, you know, Rigathi Gachagua as well as the Deputy President William Ruto come out and answer these questions that, you know, are being asked not just by the journalists or the media, but also a major, you know, part of the electorates, that is the voters as well as the public of Kenya. You know, this is more of up close and you know, trying to get these answers, because, you know, with rallies, there's just so much noise, voters, you know, screaming and shouting. They might not be audible or get their message passed as clear as these interviews do.
And also, what was asked yesterday was in regards to the 6,000 Kenyan shillings monthly stipend that Raila Amolo Odinga's government will literally give Kenyans once he gets into office. The biggest question is, where will the money come from in regards to financing this 6,000 Kenyan shillings stipend? We've just talked about the debt we are having as a country at the moment, and the money that is going out of the country just to literally service and pay this debt. And Raila Amolo Odinga says that if 700 billion Kenyan shillings has been lost to corruption, if you basically try to block this, you can have savings of about 500 billion Kenyan shillings. We do have the 6,000 Kenyan shillings stipend that will come out. The financing will come out after the Azimio's government blocks all the loopholes, all the corruption loopholes. It has been the question since 2002, every presidential candidate coming out and saying that they're going to literally block the corruption loophole, and Raila Amolo Odinga is literally hoping that he will close this loophole so that he can finance the monthly stipend. And talking about Deputy President William Ruto, tomorrow is the day, 30th of June, whereby they shall be launching their manifesto. But talking about Deputy President William Ruto, he has a new way of literally doing things in the country. Charters, and Ruto banks on charter contracts to snare votes from selected groups. Now, Deputy President and UDA presidential candidate William Ruto is banking on his new strategy of signing charters with segmented interest groups to lock group votes as the race to State House gets tighter. Now, number of charters, 5 at the moment. The first one is a woman charter. The Deputy President has literally signed. 2/3 gender rule becomes a reality. The second one is the health charter, whereby recently he said that he will end the monopoly of KEMSA. The third is the charter with the 47 counties on how his government will literally increase allocation to all these 47 counties and ensure there's a smooth running of these counties. The fourth one is youth charter, establish and support incubation centers for the creative artists to nurture their talent and educate them on monetizing in the industry, improve accessibility, availability and affordability of the NHIF scheme to deliver high-quality healthcare services to young people across the country, and creation of jobs, as well as formulating policies to better the lives of the youth. The last and the fifth charter is the education charter, solve the 116,000 teacher deficit in public schools within 2 financial years, and establishment of a national education fund to mobilize grants grants, bursaries and scholarships for private and public sponsors to cater for non-tuition cost. We've seen the Deputy President, and they do have 3 teams that are there that literally campaigning for the Kenya Kwanza Brigade. We have the WSR, William Samoei Ruto team. We have the RG, that is Rigathi Gachagua team. And we have the MM, that is Musalia Mudavadi team, that has been campaigning for the Kenya Kwanza side and holding different economic forums in the country just to literally popularize the bottom-up economic approach that we say that is the economic liberalization for this country.
Now let's switch our focus from a bit of, politics in the national space to politics in the political parties. Now, sibling rivalry is hurting Deputy President William Ruto's State House quest. The likes of Mwangi Kiunjuri, the Service Party leader, Johnson Muthama, the UDA National Chairman, William Kabogo of Tujibebe wa Kenya Party, vying for Kiambu County gubernatorial seat, Kimani Ngunjiri, Amason Kingi, Pamoja African Alliance, Boni Khalwale. And so the sibling rivalry is really playing out in various counties. I'd take a look at first Kakamega County, where the Deputy President William Ruto is facing a state of confusion following an internal revolt that has seen Senator Cleophas Malala and publicly clash with his predecessor, Dr. Boni Khalwale. Remember, initially they were both going for the same seat, but after talks apparently from the United Democratic Alliance or between UDA and ANC, Khalwale stepped down for Malala, and he will be going for the county senatorial seat. That's not just it. The UDA National Chairman, Johnson Muthama, has taken a back seat in the national campaigns since the entry of his bitter rival, that is Machakos Governor Dr. Alfred Mutua, who is also the Maendeleo Chap party leader. So, the chairman, that is Muthama, says, my conscience and principles cannot be compromised at any given time, as I am a person with a firm stand. He says that he does support the Deputy President William Ruto, but cannot and will not share a podium with the MCC party leader, Dr. Alfred Mutua. Elsewhere, the Deputy President William Ruto's campaigns in Samburu County were also rocked on Monday after Governor Moses Lenol Kulal campaigned for Raila Odinga's Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition candidates within the region. So the sibling rivalry is playing out a lot within this party. We saw Mwangi Kiunjuri of the Service Party withdraw his support and says, you can vote for whoever you want at the top, but on this zone or this county, vote for the Service Party leaders. And we've also seen that happen in the coastal region, where the Pamoja African Alliance, Amason Kingi, is also a victim of the United Democratic Alliance movement, where his candidate for Kilifi, that is George Kithi, facing Aisha Jumwa of UDA, quite a vocal leader, that is Aisha Jumwa, and also that is also playing out in that region. So the sibling rivalry is the new normal within the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. But it's not just Kenya Kwanza Alliance suffering. The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party is also a victim of that. Now it faces internal revolt on plans to drop candidates. Mathira Member of Parliament aspirant, that is Bahati Kioko, who has been the first casualty, perhaps, in that zoning factor. He was asked to drop his bid to allow the ODM candidate to stand in that position, but we've seen him come out and say that he's not dropping his bid at all. We're also looking at different regions within the country where we are having 2 Azimio candidates, perhaps different political parties going for the same seat. Governor Joseph Olelenku, and that is David Nkedienye of Jubilee, Olelenku of ODM as well, going for the same seat. We're also looking at Governor Wilbur Otichilo, Professor Hamadi Boga, Chirau Ali Makwere, Senator George Haniri. So, that is the issue that comes with coalition party or alliances, trying to bring in more than 3 parties together. There will always be these instances or these situations.
And there's no time. The clock is ticking quick and fast. 40 days to this year's general election, and the 2 coalitions have 24 hours to literally sort their mess out. That is the Kenya Kwanza side and also the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance, simply because IEBC will be gazetting candidates on Thursday, that is tomorrow. That is why the two coalitions or the two alliances have 24 hours to literally come up with a solution on how they are going to deal with this sibling rivalry that has rocked the two coalitions. And see, they put it out. We've seen it play out. And we also seen the Narok gubernatorial hopeful for ODM also saying that I don't have an issue with the person you will elect as president of the Republic of Kenya. You can elect anyone you want to, but just elect me into office of this county. And that is what has been the norm. We have seen candidates now campaigning for a different presidential hopeful, and they're in a different party. The Narok governor campaigning for Deputy President William Ruto. And they've also mentioned the same governor also who is in UDA campaigning also for Raila Amolo Odinga. The same issue that is affecting these two coalitions. And as I've just said, they only have 24 hours to literally, and the clock is ticking. As we talk, it's just tomorrow. Now the hour dropped simply because they have to sit down and sort this issue out. If it's going to Kakamega and having a sit down with Cleophas Malala and Boni Kalwale, deputy president, will literally do so. We've seen the financial power they do have. They can fly to there. And also the same, there's also an issue when it comes to the sibling rivalry at the coast in the Azimio brigade. They can also do that simply because tomorrow is the D-Day. IEBC shall be gazetting the people who shall be on the ballot, or the candidates who shall be on the ballot from the two coalitions come August.
Yes, so quickly let's also update you on what is happening on other sectors in the country. Now, Nakuru has been a county that has been marred by violence and gangs, criminal gangs. And as we speak, 3 Nakuru members of parliament are being quizzed over links to dreaded Confirm gang. Bahati Member of Parliament Kimani Ngunjiri, Nakuru Town West MP Samuel Orama, Nakuru Town East MP David Gikaria are at the center of it. Now, the 3 Nakuru MPs are being probed over the alleged links to the dreaded Confirm gang that has been terrorizing residents of Nakuru City and its environs. These 3 MPs appeared before the police yesterday, and according to the Rift Valley Regional Commissioner, apart from the Confirm gang, other gangs that have been terrorizing residents include Mauki, Nyuki Squad, Gaza, Jerusalem, and the Boston Brothers. They operate in informal settlements like Pondamali, Kwaronda, Steamer Lane, Jasho, Bangladesh, Shabab, Mwariki, and Kaptembo. Mohammed said at least 42 ringleaders are on police radar. This is just not the time for any member of parliament to want to be associated with this kind of cases and this kind of gangs. And of course, it raises really a lot of questions because they were found, with, illegal weapons, things like guns, as well as pangas, the machetes. And so we'll be looking to get more details into just, why these MPs, 3 of them are at the center of it, particularly in a county that we've seen cases of gangs terrorizing residents. Just, a few weeks ago, a former student who was, killed when she was going to the salon, and apparently a stray bullet hit that child. And so, there are just so many deaths that have been associated with these gangs. And so we'll be looking to get more details really on just why these 3 are at the center of it.
And the sad news will be coming out from Nakuru County. There were also ladies who are also killed in Nakuru, and someone tried to literally burn them up, and that is what is happening in Nakuru County. We are just 40 days to this year's general election, and we want a peaceful coexistence amongst ourselves, and these are just sad stories coming from Nakuru. And clearly shows you how the government or the Ministry of Interior is alert in ensuring that this year's election is not marred with violence. The country and the government has been trying to fight these gangs. These gangs literally destabilize these counties, as business cannot continue to be run in these counties. Now, Cynthia, we have a presidential hopeful who says he's going to legalize bang. And now, the United Nations come out and says legalizing bang speeds drug impact and it is wrong. Do not legalize bang. And they've said that it is a problem that is literally affecting so many people in the world. And it says 11.2 million is the number of people across the globe injecting drugs. Half of the numbers are living with hepatitis. And they're also talking about issues to do with the rehabilitation centers. Those who are using cannabis sativa are the ones who are in these rehab centers. What a time for the United Nations to come out and say we cannot legalize bang. And they have also called on those countries that have literally legalized bang. And currently 64 countries have provision in their national legislation allowing medical use of cannabidiol pharmaceutical preparations that cannabis have for a range of medicinal conditions. And the UN has come out and say nope, bang, nope.
Yeah, I mean, Professor George Wajakoya's, manifesto or objectives have been ruffling the wrong feathers clearly. The United Nations is now involved, says, it's wrong. The clergy as well said it was wrong. John Mituto himself also came out. I mean, after so many years, we've never heard of John Mituto back in the national politics, but now he's back and says, it's very wrong. In fact, he says that he just wishes that he's appointed a senator so that he can put a motion to impeach Wajakoya if at all he's the president that will be getting into office on August 9th. So we've been looking at the debates about bang, whether it's medicinal value or not, and, the purpose of economy as well. And, there's a leader who also gave an example, must be Mututo, who also gave an example and says, Ethiopia, Jamaica have been, in the bank business for a very long time, perhaps to try and relieve them, to try and relieve the economic pressure of them, but it hasn't worked for them in so many years, and so it will not work for Kenya. And these are the questions that will need to be asked on that presidential debate if he shows up on just, has he made a significant amount of statistics into just how bang is sold? What do we get from bang? How many shillings can we get from bang? At the end of the year, from that financial year, how many millions or billion shillings would we have gotten from the bank selling and to pay off these debts? And that should also be said about the snake farming as well. We need to get a clear civil knowledge or education about that. How much is a snake, for one? Do we buy? Where do we get the snake from? What are we required to keep that snake? There's just so many questions into this manifesto that needs to be scrutinized at a very close range.
So, it is right to put and say if Wajakoya wants to literally legalize bang, he should also put in his manifesto he will be allocating more monies so that the country can have a number of rehabilitation centers in the country so that to deal with the menace that will be brought about by the intake of bang in the country. And Cynthia has talked about snake, and snakes are poisonous.
Are you willing to keep a snake?
I'm not willing to keep a snake. And you're looking at how dangerous Wajakoya is now. You're talking about bang and also snake farming, and snakes are poisonous. And when we talk about bang, we talk about mental health, which clearly means if these monies will be used to pay our debt, then we must have some monies to literally construct rehabilitation centers in all the 47 counties, simply because there will be a negative effect of these in the country. Talking about dire effects that the country is currently facing, a number of Kenyans in need of food aid rises to 4.1 million. I was about to say Kenyan shillings. Well, I'm used about talking about money. So the number of people in need of food aid increased from 3.5 million in May to 4.1 million in June. Cynthia, what a time. We're looking at a time whereby now the prices, food prices in the country are crazy and people cannot put food on the table. We are living below $1 a day. We're not being able to literally have 3 meals a day. People cannot be able to have the basic needs each single day. And you're looking at a time that 4.1 million Kenyans literally need food at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that is the dire situation. Grim statistics would call them. 4.1 million people. I mean, that is a very big number and a very huge number. and they're distributed across different counties. Be it in the northeastern region, in the coastal region. We've been looking at Lamu is also one of the biggest casualty, and it's very sad because we're just so much focused on the elections that we forget there's also this particular group, voters, the electorates as well, who might not make it to August 9th, perhaps because, of the hunger crisis, and, unfortunately, someone could pass away in between those days before the August 9th elections, and 4.1 million people is just a huge number. And, we've been talking about whether or not do we take food to these people, perhaps a kilo or 2 packets of ugali, perhaps, the cooking oil, or do we just give them money? And that was the big question, really, that, a lot of people have been debating around. Is the government supposed to give them some amount of money to do the shopping for themselves, or are they likely to take food to these people? And, it's also sad that, these counties have governors, members of parliament, and senators who are also very much focused on campaigns. They'd rather, work with their presidential aspirants in other regions than, come back and have a discussion, proper discussion with this region, and also call on other stakeholders or support from non-governmental organizations, government organizations to come in and help this particular group. We've just been so much focused on, am I going to get into office on August 9th? Will I make it to the ballot? Do I have a pending court in case that I need to work on? Do I have my degree to go for this seat? And we're just, slowly, focusing away on the drought crisis.
And the presidential hopefuls have not come out to literally talk about the same issue on how they're going to literally deal with this and ensure that the Kenyans who are having hunger issues in the country are sorted out. Cynthia, we have countries that do have this issue, but these countries have literally done something to ensure that they do have these irrigation schemes, that they literally have a way of ensuring that their country does have food. Talk about Egypt. Talk about Israel. These are countries that are even worse than Kenya, but you look at them, they have come out with a number of, we can say, projects that literally ensure that there is food in these countries, and we can literally do that in these areas that are being affected. We just need to benchmark on what Israel is doing, on what Egypt is doing, so that we can able to literally cushion our fellow Kenyans from these dire effects. But Kenya, when we talk about benchmarking, they literally take this overboard. It's a serious thing to benchmark in Kenya, simply because when you tell members of parliament, we are going to benchmark, men, they just see it as another avenue of literally taking government money, taxpayers' money. And when we're saying benchmarking, we literally want the government to literally go to Egypt and Israel and look at what Egypt and Israel is doing to be able to just run these schemes. We had the Galana Kulalu. That was a dream irrigation scheme for the country. It was meant to deal with these. But look at our corrupt leaders. Look at what they did to this scheme. And it died. It doesn't exist even now, simply because those are the kind of leaders we do have in the country, and that was what was supposed to cushion Kenyans from such issues.
You've mentioned about benchmarking, which has, really jogged my memory back to the 2018 World Cup. And apparently some of our members of parliament went to benchmark, because it was in Russia, to take a look at how was the sport conducted. And they were supposed to write a report, table it, come back, with it, try to give it to perhaps county assemblies, football stakeholders, on how do we ensure that we keep, this football ministry running properly. Perhaps the stadiums, build as many as we can, quality stadiums, not just building something that we call it a stadium, a quality stadium that can
FIFA
host.
standard.
Yeah, that is FIFA standard and can host World Cup matches or international matches. And then, later on it comes out in public that they actually never wrote anything in the report. It was just, words, but when you keenly read in between the lines, there was nothing credible that was written, and they used millions of money to go to Russia. In fact, posted pictures of being in Russia with the different jerseys. And interestingly, I didn't see any Kenyan flag. It was just, the MPs with T-shirts or, various regalias of different countries. And so benchmarking in this country is a word that needs to be very much described, very well described. Perhaps a dictionary will have to be involved on just what is to benchmark. It's not just about taking about 10 or 20 or 15 members of parliament to Egypt, and then they go into this very nice hotel, spend a day or two in conferences, meeting, and then come back and tell us they have benchmarked. They actually need to go to this places in Egypt that are drought-stricken. Talk to residents of that area. What has your government done as a resident of this area? How much are you paid? Or what kind of food do they bring for you? And so those are the questions that also need to be given to these leaders. That is what is benchmarking. Not just, you jumping on a plane, going to Egypt, coming back 1 week later, table a report. It's just a bunch of words and nothing meaningful in it.
That is what Cynthia is saying, that you should be very, very careful when you're telling a leader that we are sending you out for benchmarking and they failed. If it is a test and I was the teacher and I've literally, I'm in the staff room looking at the report they've brought up, I could have given them a fail, an F. Why? Simply because currently, we've been banned by FIFA, so what did they go to do?
Exactly. Actually thinking about it, what exactly did they do? Because, 3 years later, we are banned by FIFA. 3 years later, if you walk around the country, how many stadiums do we have? 3 years later, how many athletes can you say they successfully came from Kenya and went to play matches or were signed by leagues, be it, in South Africa or in Europe? 3 years later, what did they actually bring from Russia?
And that is the issue with the Kenyan leaders. We send them out to benchmark. They go out there to enjoy themselves. Look at the beautiful hotels, look at the beautiful sceneries and the beautiful climate and everything. And that is the problem. Look at us. Our football is literally going down the drain, and just like the river, when it flows, it never comes back. And that is what is affecting this country. Look at our football clubs. Our football clubs are suffering. Yet we send leaders back then to just go and benchmark on how to make football in Kenya be great. But these leaders came with, I think they copied from another country that was also banned. I don't want to name the country, but there's a country that also been banned by FIFA when it comes to the same. I think they literally did not write their own notes. They took, because that country was banned first before Kenya. So literally they copied from this country, and that is what has made us also be banned by FIFA.
If we start talking about it, we will never come to an end. But as we wrap it up, there's something I'd love to bring out in that is happening in the sporting world, cutting across various sporting action, football, volleyball, and rugby as well. Now, there's a problem with sponsorship in this country. The football teams don't have sponsors, and if they do come in, it's just a matter of months, and then that is done. The volleyball team wasn't even going to Brazil for the training camp for the World Cup or for the World Championships for volleyball. Why? Sponsorship. The government was supposed to give them about 43.6 million shillings, and they did not make any commitment with regards to that. It actually took a gaming company or a betting company to come in and help this team. The Kenya Rugby Union can now breathe a sigh of relief after a Taita Sisal estate firm came into their rescue and handed them a 10 million Kenyan shillings sponsorship. We don't want to ask the wrong questions to the CS, but we want to ask the right questions. Why are our sporting teams struggling?
Now, I also want to send out some of my wishes to these presidential hopefuls, that start with Professor George Wajakoya, then to Deputy President William Ruto, then to Raila Amolo Odinga. We do have corporates in this country, the same corporates that are sponsoring leagues in the world. They're the same corporates we do have in the country. The corporates sponsoring football in England, they're the same corporates that are in this country, the same corporates in the US, same corporates in this country. What we literally need, we need to give these corporates, we can say that an open ground, favorable ground whereby they can literally invest into these sports in the country. We literally tell them that if you literally sponsor this team, then we are going to do this to you. We should be giving them an option of literally sponsoring something and removing some of these things we tell them to do. Is it the taxes? Then if you're going to sponsor anything in the country, then you will have
Exempted
to,
from
yeah, you'll be exempted from a certain tax. And that is what we should be able to do as a country, simply because we cannot be talking about football, then the next day we talk about volleyball, then the next day we talk about rugby, then the next day cricket, then the next day hockey, the next day basketball. It's just the same issue day in, day out. And these corporates are the same corporates worldwide. They're the same corporates that are literally sponsoring different teams in the world. Let's not go far away to Tanzania, whereby there is a Yanga and Simba. We've seen these corporates. They're there. We've also seen there is a company that is in Kenya. Believe me or not, there's a company that is in Kenya but is literally sponsoring the Tanzanian Premier League. Why? Simply because Tanzanian Premier League, they have literally come up with measures that are favorable for these corporates when they start sponsoring these teams. And that is what we should do as a country, simply because we cannot be begging each single day. And these are national, they're representing us.
In fact, the Kenya Rugby Union and the Friends of Rugby had 2 weeks ago kicked off a social media campaign on the online fundraising platform.
And you can literally see where we are. A begging nation.
And the presidential aspirants can actually spend up to 1 billion Kenyan shillings in campaigns just within this period. Take a look at both of them. How much have they used, roughly estimating to now? Because they'd have to print, you know, the merchandise. They have to hire the caravans. They'd have to pay for these different social halls. They have to pay for these different social fields that they're using. They'd have to pay the MCs. They'd have to pay so many things. Perhaps, you know, get that ticket or that licensing to actually hold a public rally in this ground. If these presidential aspirants were to just, you know, commit 10 million, which is very little money for them, or 20 million shillings to these teams, why would the Kenya Rugby Union have to go online and fundraise? It's a national team, for heaven's sake. Why would they go online to fundraise? The volleyball team are on the verge of not even making it to Brazil, which means that they'd have potentially lost their chances of competing in the World Championships later on in September because they didn't have money to go to, you know, these training camps. The football, that one we can't even talk about because there's just so much to even mention. So, I mean, it's a collective effort that needs to be put up. The Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Amina Mohammed, I don't want to say she's sleeping on the job, but it sounds like that is what she's doing. Because, I mean, why are teams struggling? But particularly national teams that are putting Kenya on the map, you know, in different countries, putting Kenya on the map. Why are the teams struggling? The athletics, it actually takes an individual, you know, performance for you to get sponsorship, perhaps from these different sporting organizations or sporting manufacturers, or the ones that manufacture merchandises. So you can clearly see there's a very big problem that needs to be solved.
And if she's not sleeping on the job, then I use Emmanuel Maru's Swahili a little bit and say that Ana Cynthia. She's trying to wake up, but we shall be talking about that, and I hope Emmanuel Mara, we shall be helping with my Swahili, and I hope I'm okay with that. And Cynthia, we're talking about, there's another issue about sports in the country. We should stop seeing sport as an avenue for failures. That is the problem affecting this country, simply because you're looking at a 21-year-old coming to literally beat our own athletes in Naivasha. You're looking at that simply because in Kenya, when you go to a sport, you say that, oh, he don't want to do this, but this is talent. We should now accept sport not as an avenue for failures, but sport, it's also another way of nurturing talent and also showcasing some of the God-given talent.
Yeah, so we can go all the way till evening just trying to talk about this and trying to see how will our teams be helped, because I mean it's really, especially if you're a sports fanatic or a sports enthusiast, you'll really understand how much it can really pain when your favorite team, you're expecting to watch it in Europe, or you're expecting to watch it somewhere competing, but they didn't make to go because they don't have money of going. For them, this is like their avenue for, you know, income, a source of income. They're depending on this to help their families, to feed their families. And then you're saying, you know, we don't have money, so we won't be making it to Europe. I mean, it's just very heartbreaking. And that is just where we want to wrap it up. So, What is there to add? The transfer window is open. I
won't allow her to talk.
I have to talk about it. The transfer window is open, ladies and gentlemen. What transfer window am I talking about? The one in England.
Okay.
And so there are teams which are not doing anything as we speak, but there are teams which have done something as we speak.
And so which are those teams that have not done anything?
I mean, am I supposed to mention?
Okay,
Manchester United has not signed a single player in this transfer window, but the good thing is they still have some time because it's supposed to end somewhere in August. And so you'll be looking at a very senior players leaving. There's some who have left already, and also those who will be coming in, not just for Manchester United, but also for the other teams who are, you know, in the race to try and ensure that as pre-season kicks off, some teams have already kicked it off already, that they have the squad, the depth they want in the squad.
And Emmanuel Kavoy, who is one of my directors, our director, is an Arsenal fanatic, and he has been talking about that Arsenal have signed so-and-so, Arsenal have done this, and this transfer window, this transfer, Emmanuel Kavoy, wherever you are, man, you've been on my neck simply because Manchester United, he has been telling me that Manchester United have signed Nobodinho, and I'm like, who is that?
You had to. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to wrap it up because we are way out of time, but I can see your feedback on social media. Thank you so much, Derek Wangila, tuning in from Marigat. Asante sana. I can see Janet Nekoyo watching, says, morning, Cynthia.